At 16, Mary eloped with her lover, taking her younger sister, while he abandoned his pregnant wife. At 17, her first child died 11 days later. At 19, she married her 24-year-old lover, weeks after his wife committed suicide, leaving behind 2 children. At 24, her husband died at sea. They had 4 children, only one of whom remained alive. At 53, she died after a long illness. Her husband was already very famous at the time, Percy Bysshe Shelley, a romantic poet. She, Mary Shelley, 200 years later, surpassed him, resonating even more deeply with a new generation, for her genius story about Frankenstein, or a passion or pain story of herself. Biography. Mary Godwin grew up in a household of radical ideas. Her father, the philosopher William Godwin, and her late mother, the pioneering feminist Mary Wollstonecraft, provided her with an environment saturated in literature, politics, and debate. Into this world in 1812 walked the young poet Percy Bysshe Shelley, then a passionate disciple of Godwin's political principles. Mary, just a girl of 14, observed him from a distance, more an admirer of her father than a figure in her own life. 2 years later, in 1814, everything changed. Mary, now 16, had grown into an intellectually bold young woman, reading in multiple languages and holding fast to her parents' ideals of personal liberty. Percy, at 21, brilliant, restless, and already married to Harriet Westbrook, re-entered the Godwin circle. This time, the meeting was electric. Mary and Percy found in each other the same idealism, the same devotion to imagination and freedom. They began to meet secretly, most often at St. Pancras Churchyard, beside Mary Wollstonecraft's grave. It was a fitting site for the beginning of a relationship that would be defined by idealism, rebellion, and grief. With the encouragement of Mary's stepsister Claire Clairmont, the pair made a drastic decision. On July 28, 1814, Mary and Percy eloped to the continent, Claire at their side. Their journey through France, Switzerland, and Germany was romantic in spirit but practically disastrous. They ran out of money, quarreled, and returned to England that autumn to face scandal and disapproval. Their early years together were marked by emotional turbulence and repeated loss. Mary's first daughter, born in early 1815, lived only 11 days. The death plunged Mary into profound sorrow, and the relationship wavered under the strain, but the bond between them remained. In 1816, Mary and Percy embarked on what would become one of the most well-known literary summers in history. They traveled to Lake Geneva, where they lived near Lord Byron, who dominated the artistic circle that formed there. The nights were cold and stormy during that year without a summer, and at Byron's urging, the group challenged each other to write ghost stories. From that evening sprang one of literature's most wondrous creations, Mary's Frankenstein. But their life together was again overshadowed by tragedy. In December of that same year, Percy's estranged wife, Harriet Shelley, drowned herself. Only weeks later, Mary and Percy married on December 30, 1816, restoring Percy's standing with his family but doing little to ease the emotional burdens they carried. Early married life brought moments of creativity and hope, including the birth of their son William and Mary's completion and publication of Frankenstein, but also immense grief. During their years in Italy, beginning in 1818, they lost both young William and their daughter Clara, one at a time, while Claire Clairmont suffered her own heartbreak through her daughter Allegra's tragic fate under Lord Byron's guardianship. Shelley's world was one of beauty and misery interwoven. Italy brought warm friendships with literary figures like Leigh Hunt, Edward and Jane Williams, and continued ties to Byron, but almost constant sorrow tested Mary's endurance. Their final home was in the coastal region near Larissai, where Percy reveled in sailing and spent long hours at sea with his friend Edward Williams. Mary, still recovering from the losses of their children and exhausted by years of upheaval, found solace in writing and in the companionship of their surviving son, Percy Florence. On July 8, 1822, Percy set sail across the Gulf of Spezia with Edward Williams and a young sailor. A sudden storm overtook their small boat. None survived. Their bodies washed ashore days later. The scene of Percy's cremation, a pyre on the beach, attended by Lord Byron, Leigh Hunt, and Edward Trelawney, became one of the most enduring images of Romanticism. Mary, at just 24, had lost the person who had shaped her youth, her art, her passions, and her tragedies. She returned to England with her young son, determined to honor Percy's memory. Through editing, publishing, and defending his work, Mary ensured that the poet who had changed her life would also shape the literary world. Mary Godwin Shelley lived until 1851, becoming a respected novelist, biographer, and the final custodian of a legacy born in passion, forged in pain, and immortalized in poetry and prose. Mary Shelley's literary career was marked by innovation and exploration of profound themes. Her most famous works include: Frankenstein was written when Mary was just 18. It is a groundbreaking novel about a scientist named Victor Frankenstein who creates a living being from dead body parts. The book explores themes of ambition, responsibility, and the consequences of defying nature. It is considered one of the first works of science fiction and remains a classic to this day. Valperga is a historical novel set in 14th century Italy. It tells the story of a fictional noblewoman, Euthanasia, who is caught in the conflicts of love, politics, and personal principles. The Last Man is a visionary and haunting novel that imagines a future world devastated by a plague. It reflects Mary's personal losses and explores themes of isolation, survival, and humanity's fragility. Lodore is a semi-autobiographical novel that examines the struggles of women in a male-dominated society through the lives of a mother and daughter. In addition to her novels, Mary wrote short stories, travelogues, and essays. She also edited and promoted Percy Shelley's poetry, ensuring his work received the recognition it deserved. Mary Shelley's life was filled with fascinating stories and moments that shaped her remarkable career. Her life and works have sparked numerous debates and controversies over the years. Throughout her life, anecdotes, works, and the controversies surrounding her, we see a woman of immense talent, resilience, and vision, with a life born in passion and forged in pain.